The screen flickered. Then, live. Millions around the world stopped what they were doing. The highly anticipated Global Tech Sovereignty Summit was airing live from Geneva. But this wasn't just another summit. Everyone knew the energy was different. Why? Because Captain Ibrahim Traoré had just landed that morning. He wasn't on the original speaker list. In fact, insiders said Elon Musk didn't even know Traoré would be attending. But now, here they were. 2 men, 2 worlds, 1 stage. The room was glossy and futuristic. Behind them, massive screens lit up with Twitter's live reaction feed. Flags of different nations hung behind the speakers. Elon stood on one side, calm, but visibly guarded. Traoré stood firm, military posture, eyes sharp. The moderator welcomed both. But before Elon could speak, Traoré leaned into the mic. "Today," he said, voice steady, "I'm not here as a soldier. I'm here as a brother. A voice for every African child whose data you're selling. For every mother whose voice you silenced in your algorithms." Gasps. Elon blinked. The world held its breath. This wasn't on the script. And in that moment, the internet caught fire. Silence swept the room. Cameras zoomed in. Journalists froze mid-typing. Elon Musk straightened his tie. But Traoré didn't flinch. "You call it innovation. I call it control," he said. "Our voices trend, but they never benefit us. Our languages vanish from your platforms. Our youth scroll your apps, but their dreams are trapped." The screen behind them showed live tweets. Traoré's Musk was now trending #1 worldwide. Elon finally responded coolly. "Captain, data isn't stolen. It's shared. People agree to it." Traoré turned to him, eyes filled with something deeper than anger. It was sorrow. Would they agree if they had power? Or are they agreeing because they were never offered protection? He paused. Then, "The colonizers used ships. You use servers. But the impact is the same. Africa loses. You profit." A woman in the audience covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. The camera cut to Elon. His jaw tightened. He hadn't expected this. Traoré wasn't shouting. He wasn't political. He was personal. And for the first time, a tech summit felt like a courtroom. Traoré stepped back from the mic. The moderator tried to move on, nervously. "Let's stay on track, gentlemen. This summit is about global innovation." But Traoré held up his hand gently. The room quieted again. "Do you know," he asked, voice low, "what happened last year in Dori, Burkina Faso?" Elon blinked. The moderator hesitated. A village had its water poisoned. A drone flew over it weeks before. Powered by AI, managed by satellite. It took photos of families, babies, elders. That data was sold just like a product. And the next month, foreign mining companies arrived. Bulldozers, security forces, guns. He paused. All that from one tweet a girl posted. A simple photo of a lake. The room froze. You could hear people breathing. Then Traoré said something no one expected. Her name was Kadi, 12 years old. "My niece." Gasps. "She died protecting a lake. Your lake now, according to your data." Elon's face dropped. He looked human, exposed. The moderator whispered, "We're live." But the world had already heard, and Twitter had already erupted. As Traoré spoke the name Kadi, something shifted. The screens behind them froze. The Twitter feed paused, as if the algorithm itself couldn't process the pain. A few audience members stood up quietly, not in protest, but in respect. "She had dreams," Traoré continued, his voice trembling just slightly. "She wanted to be an engineer. She used Elon's internet to learn. Starlink gave her connection. But it also brought the drone that mapped her village." He turned to Elon. "You gave her signal. Then you gave them coordinates. Elon looked stunned. Not defiant, not defensive, just stunned. The moderator shuffled papers nervously. A producer whispered, "Do we cut the stream?" But they didn't. They couldn't. Because for the first time in Tech Summit history, the world wasn't watching a debate. They were watching a confession. "It's not just about one girl," Traoré added, voice steady again. "It's about millions, millions of Africans whose stories, languages, lives you collect, label, and sell." A reporter from Germany whispered to her camera, "This is not a speech. This is a revolution." And on Twitter, Kadiwa's 12 began to trend worldwide. Elon finally spoke. "Captain, I had no idea about this incident. We don't target anyone. We build infrastructure. We help people." His tone wasn't arrogant. It was unsure. Traoré nodded slowly. "And that's the problem." He stepped forward. "Colonialism doesn't come with ships anymore. It comes with satellites. It comes with policies written in code. It comes with apps we didn't ask for, stealing the languages our children speak." He looked around the room. "Your code decides what's hate speech in Burkina Faso. Your algorithm decides which of our voices matter. But you've never lived here. You've never eaten with us. You don't even know what our joy sounds like." A tear ran down the cheek of a young African tech student in the audience. Traoré looked directly into the camera. "To the child watching this right now in Niger, in Mali, in Ghana, don't be afraid to speak in your mother tongue. Don't shrink to fit the system. We'll build new ones." The camera cut to Elon, now visibly shaken. He didn't respond. Because how do you respond? To truth you've never dared to hear? The studio lights flickered briefly as the global feed reset. Elon looked toward his team, as if begging for a lifeline. But no one could help him now. Traoré pulled something from his pocket. It was a small, folded letter. "This," he said gently, "was written by Kadi's mother. I visited her last week." He unfolded the letter and began to read. His voice cracked, but he continued. "Dear Mr. Traoré, I don't know if speaking makes a difference, but please, tell the world that my daughter was not a rebel. She just wanted to protect the water that gave us life. She believed that if people knew, they would help." Traoré paused. A quiet sob came from someone in the back row. "She believed in the internet," he continued. "She thought if she told her story online, someone would listen." He looked up, locking eyes with Elon. But the internet didn't protect her. It helped erase her. Even Elon looked away now, not in guilt, in grief. And if a 12-year-old girl had to die just for speaking, then what is your technology even worth? The crowd sat frozen. And then, people began to weep. The digital feed didn't just freeze this time. It glitched. On screens across the world, from New York to Nairobi, Twitter temporarily crashed. Millions were trying to share what they were feeling. But the algorithm couldn't keep up. A platform built on endless noise had been stunned into silence by one mother's letter. Inside the summit, the atmosphere had changed. This wasn't just a policy debate anymore. This was a moral reckoning. Elon Musk, still seated, wiped his palms on his trousers. The man known for launching rockets now looked like he had nowhere to escape to. Traoré quietly stepped back from the podium and asked something simple. "May I show a short video?" The screen lit up. A grainy clip began to play, shot from a dusty phone camera in rural Burkina Faso. It showed Kadi. She was laughing, standing by a lake, holding a small notebook, and explaining how she wanted to build a floating classroom for village kids. She ended her clip with one line: "If they don't come teach us, we'll teach ourselves." The audience sat in stunned silence. Some couldn't hold their tears. And somewhere in Silicon Valley, a server blinked red. The video ended. There was no clapping, no applause, no music, just the weight of reality. Traoré cleared his throat, visibly emotional. She never made it to secondary school, he said. The week after this video, her lake was claimed as property of interest by a foreign energy firm. Their justification? Satellite imagery provided by a third-party AI firm funded by one of Elon's ventures. You could hear someone crying quietly in the third row. Elon finally stood, slowly. "Captain," he said, I had no idea." Traoré didn't shout. He nodded respectfully. "And that's the problem. You build things you don't understand, for people you never meet, with power you'll never feel the weight of." He looked around the room. "We didn't come here to ask for pity. We came here to reclaim our voices." Cameras zoomed in on Elon's face. And for the first time, the man who sent satellites into orbit looked small. "If this is what progress means," Traoré said softly, "then maybe the future needs to stop and listen first." The room remained quiet, but Twitter was burning. A soft sniffle echoed across the stage. It came not from Elon, but from the moderator. She was a British tech journalist, seasoned and respected, but now she was crying, genuinely, visibly. "I met Kadi," she whispered, almost to herself. "Last year, during a project, she gave me her only pen." The audience turned to look. She stood slowly, no longer a host, but a witness. We've all been part of this system. All of us who clicked agree without thinking, who stayed silent while the powerful mapped people's lives without permission. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't political. It was human." Traoré placed his hand on his chest, a traditional West African gesture of honor. Then he turned to Elon. "You once said you wanted to connect the world." Elon nodded cautiously. "Then connect with us. Not above us, not over us, with us." He pointed to the sky, where a real-time map showed satellites orbiting over Africa. "You don't need to look up to see the future," Traoré said. "You need to look across." Suddenly, in dozens of African cities, people began gathering in public spaces, watching this live. This wasn't just a summit anymore. It was a spark. Just as the crowd began processing Traoré's words, the moderator received a silent cue from the production team. "There's a man requesting to speak. He's in the audience. Says he's Kadi's father." Security hesitated, but Traoré nodded. The man walked slowly to the stage. His face was weathered, his hands rough, but his eyes held an ocean of pain. "I've never spoken to cameras," he said softly. "Never even touched a computer. But your technology found us, even when we never looked for it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a faded photo of Katie, holding a homemade tablet made of cardboard and old radio parts. She called it her dream machine. Said one day she'd talk to the world. He turned to Elon. She did. And then she was gone. Elon's lips parted, but no sound came. The man looked at Traoré, then whispered, "Tell them, we forgive, but don't let them forget." The father stepped down, and suddenly a standing ovation swept the room. Not loud, but slow, heavy. A clap for truth, a clap for loss, and a clap for Kadi. The applause faded, and Traoré took the mic again. His tone was firmer now, not angry, resilient. Kadi's village, Djibo, didn't just lose her. After the data firms passed the satellite reports to investors, a Canadian mining company bought the land, without the consent of a single villager. He turned to the screen behind him. Satellite footage appeared. Green fields, then bulldozers, then scars of machinery ripping through once sacred ground. "They said it was legal," he continued, "that contracts were signed, but no one in Djibo can read English. They didn't know what they were signing." He paused. "And that's not data sharing. That's theft with a smile." Elon looked down at the floor. Somewhere backstage, A translator from a legal team quietly began crying. She was the one who had written the very contract used in Djibo. They came with shiny promises, Traoré said, but they left graves and broken rivers. A hush. You see, Mr. Musk, this isn't about Wi-Fi. This is about what happens after connection. The audience didn't move. They couldn't. Because this wasn't theory. It was reality. It was history repeating, with a satellite dish on top. The lights dimmed. On screen appeared an image that stunned everyone. A satellite view of Kadi's village, except this time it showed something new. A small rectangular object. Her grave, marked only by a stick and a handwritten sign that read, "Here lies Kadi. She dreamed too big." The room erupted in gasps. Traoré stepped aside to let the image breathe. Then softly, "This was taken by your satellite 3 weeks ago." Elon stood, confused. "We don't take images of graves." But Traoré held up the metadata, printed on paper. "Your machine didn't know it was a grave, but it tagged it as potential construction clearance zone." Murmurs. So even in death, she was still seen as land to be used. The tears were no longer silent now. Journalists wiped their faces. Students held hands. A tech CEO in the front row buried his face in his sleeve. Traoré leaned in toward the camera. "You want to build a better world, Elon? Then see our people before you see our resources. See our children before you see our code." And just like that, Twitter crashed again. The summit was now no longer a summit. It was a trial, a reckoning, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood not as an accuser, but as a mirror. Elon Musk, who had remained mostly silent, finally reached for the microphone. His voice was slower, no longer corporate, more human. "I came here thinking I would talk about Mars. Instead, I'm hearing stories from the ground that I never even imagined." He looked up. "I'm sorry. For Kadi, for her father, for all the villages we mapped from space but never saw with our eyes." Traoré stood quietly. Elon continued. "We wanted to bring the world online, but maybe we forgot to ask what kind of world people wanted." The room stayed still. Traoré stepped forward. "You are one of the most powerful men on Earth. If even you didn't know what was happening, then who does?" A heavy silence. "This isn't about apologies. It's about accountability." He raised a photo. "This is the Starlink satellite that passed over Djibo the day before the mining deal." On it was printed, "Musk 09 AFR deployment." The crowd gasped, because now the satellite had a name. Just as Traoré held up the photo of the satellite, the screen behind them went black. Every light in the studio flickered, then out. For 8 full seconds, the summit feed died. No image, no sound. But when the lights returned, something had changed. The Twitter logo on the backdrop was replaced. In its place, a glowing message in bold white text. "Do you own what you see?" A hush swept the room. No one admitted to triggering it. Even Elon turned to his staff, confused, frightened maybe. Was it a hack, a warning, or something deeper? A glitch from inside the very machine they built? Traoré looked at the message, then back at the audience. "That's the question, isn't it?" he said. "Do we own our data, our land, our voices?" He held up Katie's photo again. "Or have we just become content, packaged and sold like code?" Tears welled up in the eyes of a Kenyan data scientist watching live. She turned to her daughter beside her and whispered, "This is the first time I feel seen." The feed cut to viewers across Africa. Watch parties, phone screens, people crying silently. The world wasn't just watching, it was waking up. Traoré wasn't done. He turned to the screen and asked, "Can I show one more video?" A soft nod came from the moderator. The screen flickered, then played a shaky clip, filmed in Ouagadougou. A boy, no older than 9, stood on a dusty street corner. In his hands, a small object shaped like a phone, but made of cardboard, wire, and bottle caps. "This is my phone," the boy said proudly. "I made it myself. It doesn't work yet, but one day, I'll call the sky." The crowd was silent. "His name is Abdoulaye," Traoré said. "His sister was taken during a raid on their village after data was sold to foreign contractors. He's never seen her again." He turned to Elon. "This child doesn't want pity. He wants power, not the power of war, but the power to imagine, to build, to speak without fear of being tracked." He paused. "And if your satellites can hear him from space, then the least we can do is listen to him here on Earth." Elon bit his lip. Even he was no longer holding back tears. And across the world, the internet was no longer trending. It was trembling. The air in the summit room had turned thick, like silence was louder than sound. Elon Musk was no longer a CEO on a stage. He was a man, standing in front of truth, being stripped of every layer of power that once protected him. Captain Traoré looked into the camera. The entire world was watching. Presidents, farmers, students, coders, mothers. He inhaled slowly and then, "You built rockets to escape Earth, but we built hearts to hold it together." He took one last look at the satellite photo of Katie's grave. "You connected us to the stars, but forgot to connect to our pain." And finally, he leaned into the microphone. The world held its breath. 10 seconds. "You do not own us. You do not own our stories. You do not own our land, our lakes, our languages. You cannot buy what was never for sale. Africa is not your lab. We are not your data. We are not your experiment. We are not your cloud storage. We are not content. We are continent." The room exploded in gasps, and Elon Musk had nothing left to say. In the seconds after Traoré's final words, something surreal happened. The summit feed was cut off. By Twitter itself, a red warning appeared on screens worldwide. "This content has been flagged for disrupting system protocols." People panicked, phones buzzed, live streams failed, hashtags disappeared in real time. But then, something even bigger happened. A backup stream came online, not from Silicon Valley, but from a young developer in Ghana who had mirrored the summit to a decentralized African server. His live stream held strong. People flocked to it by the millions. The new top trend, where continent Traoré had sparked something no tech giant could contain. This wasn't a rebellion, it was a reclamation. Back in the summit, Elon sat down quietly. He whispered something to himself. "I never wanted this." Traoré walked toward him, calm, grounded. He extended his hand. "Then help us build the future right, but not over us, with us." Elon hesitated. Then he shook it, and the world saw it, not as a handshake between two powerful men, but between past harm and future hope. The next morning, the clip of Traoré's 10-second mic drop was uploaded officially. In just 4 hours, it reached 113 million views. In 12 hours, world leaders began responding. In 24 hours, tech firms across the globe issued new transparency policies. But the moment that broke hearts, a video surfaced of Abdoulaye, the boy with the cardboard phone, watching Traoré's speech with wide eyes. When it ended, he whispered. He said my sister's name, and the world heard. He lifted his cardboard phone high. Now I believe it works. Cut 2. A little school in Djibo, Burkina Faso. On the wall, a mural of Kadi's face with the words, "Dream machines belong to dreamers." The final shot fades in. Traoré sitting quietly in a garden, looking up at the sky. No satellites in view, just stars. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a tear, then do something small. That makes a big difference. Like this video, drop a comment with the word Kadi if she moved you. Subscribe, not just for more stories, but to be part of a community that fights for truth, dignity, and the voices that tech forgot. Let's remind the internet, we are not just data. We are not just watchers. We are storytellers. And this is just the beginning. We are continent.